the neighborhood team program, as I mentioned, came out of South Bureau in 2010. It is mentioned by name and by website in the LAFD CERT manual as an option for you to take after you've graduated the CERT class to help set up the teams in your neighborhood. The idea is that during a disaster, we really will be working with our neighbors, and the whole point of the CERT training is to be able to help our neighbors and help ourselves after disaster when the fire department's not available. And Chin and South Bureau has done a great job of working the neighborhood team program, building it and building teams out of it to the point where I think it's ready for the next step. And that's what we're introducing today with the document package. As mentioned, my name is Patrick Botts-Forbes. I am the LAFD CERT Central Bureau Coordinator, and Chin is the South Bureau Coordinator. And we also have, I don't know if Carl is on the line with us, or Christy, who are our West and Valley Bureau Coordinators. So the big issue is that across the world, across the country, states, other parts of the country have seasonal disasters. You have hurricanes that are hitting the Gulf and East Coast right now. You have snowstorms, blizzards that hit the Northeast. You have sandstorms that hit the Midwest. These are seasonal disasters that occur, and they're getting worse. We're getting multiple Category 5s hitting the Gulf Coast in a year. We have islands that have been completely wiped out by these hurricanes. We've been lucky in Southern California that we don't have seasonal disasters. In fact, the last major disaster, regional disaster in the LA region was the 1938 Los Angeles flood. Northridge, which a lot of us remember, was not a regional disaster. It hit Northridge. It hit the surrounding areas around Northridge. It might have knocked power out in South LA, but by the end of the day, everything returned to normal in most parts of the city. It was really just Northridge and those immediate areas surrounding Northridge that were impacted so severely. For most of us, that means that we don't have to worry about the sky falling. We don't have to worry about a giant cyclone coming down and ripping our roofs off, or if we live in a mobile home, taking our home away from us, literally. But that also means that we've become complacent. If you talk to most people and ask them, are they prepared for a disaster? I can guarantee you that the answer is going to be no 99% of the time. And that is not a good plan, because Southern California is actually vulnerable to almost every single type of natural disaster. We get more tornadoes in Los Angeles and Orange County than anywhere else in the state of California. And that means that we get tornadoes in Los Angeles County. They're, very small ones that generally don't do much damage, but we still get tornadoes in Southern California. We have, earthquakes, of course, are the big thing that we think about. And we can't predict that. We don't know that an earthquake is coming. We don't see it coming across the Gulf towards us. We don't know when it's going to happen. We do know, however, that we are 100 years overdue for an earthquake that's 10 times the power of Northridge. If you lived in Ridgecrest, that was a major earthquake that hit them locally, and pretty much just Ridgecrest and the surrounding areas. But that was a massive disaster for them. And if we get something like that, size of Ridgecrest hitting the LA basin, we can expect a lot of property damage, billions of dollars in economic loss, and possibly thousands or tens of thousands of people dying. What that means is that the fire department will be immediately overwhelmed. And just like they were in Ridgecrest, just like they were during the Northridge quake, 911 will immediately go busy because it will not be able to handle the volume of calls. So we really do need to get prepared, and we need to encourage our neighbors to get prepared, because when that disaster happens, just like earlier this year when suddenly there was a concern about things not being open, suddenly there was no toilet paper, there was no water to be found. Food, the shelves were empty of food because everybody panicked. Everybody went out and panic bought more. They bought whatever they could, not what they needed. Whatever they could get their hands on, they purchased, and a lot of times was vastly more than market price. The people who were prepared didn't panic. They didn't go out to the stores. We sat back and said, I've got enough supplies to last me months. I don't need to go to the store right now. I don't need to get in a 2-hour line for whatever scraps are left. And if more of us are prepared to that level, then when an earthquake occurs or some other natural disaster, a power outage, windstorms taking out power for days, if not weeks, or Orange County had an issue with their water system and warned everybody, please conserve water so we can get this repaired. When that information went out, Orange County ran out of water because everybody immediately dumped whatever water they had into their bathtubs and trying to stockpile it in case the worst case scenario happened. And that's exactly what we know will happen. If you go to the store right after an earthquake, there will be nothing left. It will be too late at that point. So the question becomes, is this another program? Why do we need another program? We already have several programs out there. We have organizations like the American Red Cross. We have Map Your Neighborhood. We have LAEMD's Ready Your LA Neighborhood. We have the Community Emergency Response Team. We have a program through LADWP called Cool Blocks. There are a lot of programs out there, and that in and of itself actually becomes a problem. There are too many programs, and when you have too many programs, you really don't have a program. You have a bunch of different competing entities that are trying to get your attention, and it becomes overwhelming very fast. So no, the Neighborhood Team Program is not really another program. What it does is it combines the best aspects of the existing programs. And what we're trying to do is make it easy to implement, but comprehensive enough that out of the box, it's turnkey. If you look at the document package, you have the step-by-step guides. Without any customization, you should be able to follow those and be able to get the program going in your neighborhood. And certainly, if you have those step-by-step guides on what to do after a disaster, they should work without any customization. Now, we will encourage you to customize later, but we want to give you something that you don't have to build. And that was part of the problem with the previous EMD program, which was called 5-Step. It was really 5 steps on how to build a plan. It was not a plan in and of itself. And it has been replaced with a better plan. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. We want this program to be easy to approach for the non-trained neighbors who don't have time to get trained. One of the biggest complaints about the Community Emergency Response Team is that it is 17.5 hours of training if taught by LAFD. It's actually 24 hours if taught by outside of LA City. And some people just can't commit to that time, and that's understandable. We live busy lives. Being asked to spend 3 hours a night for 7 weeks in a row is something that some people can't do, especially if you have young kids and you're a single parent. We understand that, and we still want to get you prepared. So we've designed this to be easy for you to follow, and we think that that's the beauty of the RYLAN program, or the Ready Your LA Neighborhood program, which is also known as Map Your Neighborhood, is it's only 2 hours. So if we can get people trained up with the Community Emergency Response Team in your community and everybody else trained on RYLAN, it's going to make your community, your neighborhood, your block so much stronger and everybody a little bit more prepared. But it's not going to ask too much of your people. So as mentioned, we're combining the LAFD Community Emergency Response Team program. We're combining the LA City EMD, or Emergency Management Department's Ready Your LA Neighborhood program. And we're also tapping into existing community or neighborhood watch programs that LAPD manages. The Community Emergency Response Team program was created in 1986 by LAFD. It was our firefighters, our chiefs, looking at where we live and realizing that they're outnumbered. Currently, there's maybe 4,000 firefighters, sworn firefighters who work for LAFD, spread over 3 shifts. That means that at any given time, there's probably only 1,000 firefighters on duty. If there's a disaster in a city of 4 million, or worse, a disaster during the day when the number jumps to 6 million in the city of Los Angeles, the fire department will be immediately overwhelmed. We're going to be on our own, is what that means. And so by teaching the Community Emergency Response Team program, the firefighters of LAFD teach us how to be prepared on our own, how to take care of our families, and then most importantly, or maybe not as most importantly, but certainly just as importantly, how to help our neighbors out safely. The 1987-86 Mexico earthquake, LAFD went down that day to observe what was going on in Mexico City, and they saw the community coming out and helping each other. It was really neighbor helping neighbor, community member helping community member. The problem was that they weren't trained. They didn't know how to do things safely. And the next morning when the aftershock hit, a lot of volunteer responders died because they were not in safe areas. They did not go into places that were safe. And when that aftershock hit, more buildings collapsed, killing a lot of these rescuers. So that's why it's so critical. There's actually a saying, we don't bring a victim to an incident. And that's what is principally taught in the Community Emergency Response Team, that safety aspect, that doing things that we don't put ourselves in danger. It teaches you team organization. It teaches you light search and rescue. It teaches you to look at a building and know, I can't go in there because that building is not safe. If there is even a small aftershock, that building may collapse on me. And unfortunately, that means that the people in there who are screaming for help, I can't do anything about. And that's a sad reality, but it's a reality because if you go in there, you don't want to become another victim. It teaches you basic first aid and how to use a fire extinguisher. The Readier LA Neighborhood program is taught by LA City EMD. It's going through a new, they're out for RFP on an online program that they expect to launch hopefully in March. It's actually based on the Map Your Neighborhood program out of Seattle that gives you a nice 9 easy step guide to follow for what to do right after an earthquake. The initial training is only 2 hours. You get together with members on your block, your neighbors, and you map out your block and get to know your neighbors, get to know what skills they have, what training, what equipment they have, but also what vulnerabilities they have. Because if you say have latchkey kids who their parents work during the day, but the kids might be home at 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the afternoon, and there's an earthquake, the parents aren't going to be there, but the kids are going to be panicking, not knowing what to do. Or you have an elderly person who's wheelchair bound and on oxygen. If that earthquake happens and they're now trapped, you know who your vulnerable people are, your neighbors are, that are going to need help first. The catch is that RYLAN and Map Your Neighborhood really rely on CERT response for larger problems. It's 2 hours of training, which is just enough to go over the bare basics. It relies on that bigger program, that bigger training to deal with some of these larger issues. And what's great about it is the Map Your Neighborhood people, the RYLAN people, can fold into CERT teams. They can become force multipliers. And that's what's taught to us in CERT, is that we're going to be relying on our neighbors who have not taken the CERT training. But you combine a couple untrained neighbors with a CERT team leader, and now you have a viable team. Neighborhood Watch has been around, I think, from the 70s, since the 70s. They're already pre-existing groups in a lot of communities, some more than others. I think South Bureau has probably more Neighborhood Watch groups than Northeast LA, but these are community members who are already neighborhood focused. They already want to help their neighbors out. So it makes a lot of sense for these groups to get CERT trained and become part of the neighborhood team program. Even some of them use two-way radios already, so it's a great aspect to add into our communications plan. As I mentioned, the neighborhood team program was created in 2010 by the South LA Battalion 18 coordinator at the time, Larry Bogatz. The pilot program created 12 organized neighborhood teams and had support from 5 different neighborhood councils, including some funding. The question really is, what are neighborhood teams? And this is a concept that kind of gets floated around in CERT, but it's never really explored beyond the training and the fact that these teams need to exist. A neighborhood team is the core response in any disaster. It's going to be grassroots in origin. The city of LA does not have the resources to create these teams. We rely on people like you, people who are interested in disaster preparedness, interested in helping their neighbors out, to step up as team leaders. And when you step up and you say, I'm interested in becoming a team leader, then we can grab you as CERT coordinators and help you build your team. But the way it's always been approached is, you know, the city of Los Angeles is one of the largest cities in the world. It should be able to do all this stuff for us. And that doesn't work. There are 4 million people who live in the city of Los Angeles, and EMD is currently scaling back on the number of employees they have. We're in the middle of a pandemic that has cut tax revenue to the city. And so there are people who are opting for early retirement across the board. LAFD, LAPD, LAEMD, all the emergency services are scaling back. And it really becomes us knowing that this is a real problem, that we have to step up. We have to be the ones who say, this is not acceptable, but we understand why it's happening. So what can we do to help? And that's where the neighborhood team program comes in. It's going to be neighbor helping neighbor. While the fire department is dealing with the big things, the skyscrapers that are on fire, the multi-story, 500 apartment building complexes, hospitals, schools that have experienced damage during an earthquake, that's where the fire department's going to be. Single family homes, residential neighborhoods, we're on our own. We may get the fire department eventually. We will get the fire department eventually, but for the first several hours, it's going to be us, and it's going to be your neighbors. And that's where this program is going to find its existence, and that's where it's going to be critical. What you do in the first few hours after an earthquake will save lives. And we as CERT coordinators will be here to support you and help you and guide you through the process of setting up your neighborhood team. To that end, what we've done is we've created step-by-step guides. We've created documentation to help you get started. We've designed these guides to be short, easy to follow. My goal is to have no document be more than 2 to 4 pages in 14-point font, so if you print it out, you can read it. We want you to have this program standardized across the city. If you already have a team, a neighborhood team, and you already have a plan, great. This program is not necessarily catered to you. What we're catering to are the people who say, we have nothing. We don't have a plan. We're worried. This is the program that's going to get you started, and we're going to build it from the ground up, and all of these programs are going to be fairly standardized across the city so that everybody knows if you go train with another team and you live in the valley and you go down to the harbor, that team is going to run pretty much very similar to your team, and vice versa. We don't need to reinvent the wheel every time. If you already have an existing team, great. We're going to work with you. If you have stuff that works, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. We don't need to recreate it. But again, there's very few of you, very few organized teams out there. Most of us need to start from the ground up. The documentation is written for both CERT and non-CERT trained people. The reason for this is a lot of times we've experienced as a CERT coordinator, you have someone come up, say, I want to get prepared. Cool, have you taken the CERT training yet? No. Okay, do that first and then come back to me. And then we never hear from these people. We'll hear from a few of them, but we lose those people because we're putting an undue burden on them, saying, you need to get trained first before we'll even talk to you. That's not going to happen anymore. This program is going to address everybody. If you never get CERT trained, that's fine. But as you start to get experience with the neighborhood team program, you start to train with your neighbors and practice, you're going to realize how vital that CERT training is, and you're going to want to take it when you can. And we're going to try and make it available to you. If you're in an area that doesn't have the CERT training very often, we'll try and get a class set up for you so that you and your neighbors can get trained up. We're going to focus on team organization, two-way radio communications, and disaster medical response. Again, what we do in the first few hours will save lives. People will get injured. People will get injured during the initial earthquake. People will get injured trying to clean up after that, and people will get injured during the aftershocks. And if your neighbor can stop a severe bleed, they're going to save your life. If you're cut up from walking out barefoot or whatever, if that injury can be cleaned and properly bandaged, then the likelihood of it getting infected is going to be much lower. And the chances of you needing to go to a hospital due to that injury days later, when the hospitals are still packed, it will save lives. Monthly since COVID started, I think around April or May, we started doing online presentations. We're going to continue doing that. These topics will be taught by CERT coordinators or experienced members in our neighborhood and community. They will range on, the topics will vary. I've been pushing more advanced and intermediate topics, but we know that the beginning topics need to be covered as well. We need to refresh. This is stuff that you might have forgotten already or you never learned in the first place. And so that repetition is important, but at the same time, you can't just be doing the basics over and over again. You're going to want to learn more, and we need to encourage you to learn more. And so that's why we're going to teach you more advanced topics as well. We're recording these presentations. They'll be up on our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and search for LAFD CERT coordinators, you'll find the presentations that we've already done. And hopefully as time goes on, we'll have other coordinators up there as well, so you don't have to hear me talking every single time. Our topics are going to focus on team leadership, team organization, two-way radio communication, disaster medical review. There's a pattern here. These are the topics that I think are the most critical to us operating. And then we're going to be reviewing the step-by-step guides periodically. One of the key things about the neighborhood team program, and really CERT to operate in general, are the idea of the CERT staging areas. If you are the only CERT trained person on your block and an earthquake happens, what do you do? Well, CERT says that you can't go anywhere, you can't do anything without at least one other person. We go in pairs, we go in teams. And if you don't have someone else with you, then you really can't do anything on your own. That's a problem. But if you have a designated CERT staging area and you've been planning this with your neighbors, even if there's no one on your block, there will hopefully be other CERT trained people in your neighborhood. You meet at a CERT staging area, now you have the beginnings of a team forming. Even if your radios don't work, even if the cell phone networks are down and your landlines don't work, you go to the CERT staging area, you meet up there, now you have a team that can do some good. To that end, what we want at each of these staging areas is a simple CERT staging area kit. People tend to want the world there. They want all the resources. They want a Connex, they want a freight container with all sorts of goodies, bandages, water, food, you name it, tents, everything there. That's not realistic. That's expensive. There are some of these CERT caches or emergency caches that are in existence, but we're talking about a CERT staging area that has about a mile radius. If you do the math and you have $10,000 worth of equipment at each of these CERT staging areas, this becomes a multi-million-dollar project very quickly. What we're looking to do is have a simple shed, garden shed there with the basics, maps, forms, clipboards. We're going to predefine damage assessment routes. The maps will be there to track the teams that are out there. So the step-by-step guides that we're going over, those will be there as well, and all the CERT forms. So if somebody comes up, they don't have their CERT bag, you hand them a clipboard with everything they need. We're going to have commercial two-way radios there. These are licensed. The radio license is owned by a 501c3 and can operate anywhere within the city limits. And if we focus on this, we have good, reproducible, trainable radio communication equipment that we can practice. And the key thing here is that while we encourage everybody to have a family radio service radio, an FRS radio, they vary from brand to brand, even within the models within the same brand. You can get a $50 radio that's going to work very well, but you're going to have people come with the $10 radios that they should not be buying. And the reason is that they don't work. They'll go out a quarter of a mile and you'll lose them. Versus the people with the $50 radios, they'll go out and they can talk for over a mile in any direction. We can't have that be the core of our communications plan. Anybody bringing their own radios and just not knowing if it works, if the radio operator knows how to use it, or if the batteries are dead. So this is why we want to have a radio communication package that is standardized across the city, that we can reproduce, that we can test with, that we know will work in that area. And the third thing is a medical resupply. We expect that we will be doing medical, that we will be doing first aid. We will burn through our personal supplies very rapidly. And so having bandages, dressings, the dry stuff that doesn't go bad, extra tourniquets, extra triangular bandages, that kind of stuff that we're going to burn through to resupply. It's not a medical kit that you're going to stock from and take with you. It is to resupply your own, because we do encourage people to have their own kits with them. Those are what you're going to be going through and using. Additionally, we have to train. If you've taken the CERT training 5 years ago, how much of it do you remember? Everybody who has taken the training over and over again has said they learned more stuff in the subsequent trainings than they learned originally. It's a repetition. It's going over, learning new things. And again, the CERT training is dynamic. What you learned 5 years ago has changed since then. And so refreshing it every couple of years is going to be critical. If you've taken first aid CPR, you know that your certification is good for 2 years. And that's because the program gets updated, the curriculum gets updated, but you lose that muscle memory, you lose the knowledge that you had that you gained 2 years ago in a, intense 8-hour period across one day where they're teaching you a dozen different skills. I guarantee you that if you've taken the first aid CPR program once, 5 years from now, I don't want you working on me if I have an injury. No offense. But that's why we also encourage people to take additional training and get practice it where you can. To that end, we're going to do drills. We're going to do exercises. The plan is to have a yearly drill across the city where we're implementing this neighborhood team program plan. We're going to have people go to their CERT staging area, set it up, send out damage response team or damage assessment teams, communicate using the radios, make sure that we can track our teams and that they can radio back incidents. And most importantly, be able to get those incidents up to a command team or a liaison team that's interacting with the fire department. Because we know cell phone networks are going to fail during an earthquake. We know that the landlines are not being maintained by the local telco providers. During a disaster, especially an earthquake, communications will be shut down in the city. We also know that 911 will go busy. Even if your cell phone works, even if your landline works, you probably won't be able to get any help because 911 is going to ring busy. Your local fire department is not going to be there. They will be assessing their neighborhoods. They will be rallying, meeting with their groups, their battalions, and then figuring out what to do. And so where the CERT teams come into play is being able to find those incidents at the ground level, the incidents that the fire department doesn't know about yet, and radio them up so that we have an overturned bus with 20 plus critically injured people at this location. Our cell phones don't work. The radio systems are down. We can't call it in, but our two-way radios work. We can call this up, and our liaison team with the fire department command post can let the fire department know about this, and we can get help to that. And that is how this program saves lives. One of the biggest problems with the CERT program is that there's no central contact list. You take the training, and if you take the training in LA City, the city attorney has said that because of this private information that you have given to the fire department is property of the city, they cannot give it to a volunteer such as myself, such as Chin, such as any of your CERT battalion coordinators. This makes it very difficult for us to get in contact with you. We have to go to CERT meetings or CERT trainings. We have to go to class 7, and you need to give us your contact information, and then we can contact you. Hopefully this is going to change with the implementation of this single point of entry, this neighborhood team program email list. It's going to be maintained by the CERT coordinators. We're not going to sell your information. We're not going to give it out. We're going to keep your contact information strictly confidential. The fire department will not be getting this from us. LAPD will not be getting this from us. ICE will not be getting this from us. No one will be getting this information. The whole purpose of this is to allow us to reach out to you, find out who's interested in being a neighborhood team leader, and help you get started, and then let you know about the trainings that we have coming up. We have no interest in giving your information to anybody. If you haven't signed up yet, go to join.ntp-LA.com to sign up. We have several goals for the neighborhood team program, end goals. First is we want to have a single place, as I mentioned in the previous slide, for community members who are interested in disaster preparedness to find out, to sign up and get information. We want to give you the information about the upcoming CERT trainings. We want to let you know about the RYLAN trainings. We want to let you know about Map Your Neighborhood. And we want to put you in touch with your battalion and bureau coordinators so that they can reach out to you and help you through the process of either finding your team or starting one. And when we put on trainings, we want to let you know about them. It does us no good to put on a drill or a training and then have no one show up to it. And when I started this with Tom Worth, the Battalion 2 coordinator, co-coordinator, we had meetings where there were a few of us. He's been doing this longer than I have. He's had trainings and meetings where it was literally him and one other person. So that does us no good. Getting your information so that we can email you is how this changes, so that you can know about these programs, you can know about these trainings, these meetings, and you can attend. Second is we want to have a standardized citywide plan that you and your neighbors can follow so that at the end, our LAFD battalion chiefs know what CERT or know what the neighborhood response is going to be, so they can write us into their own plans, their disaster plans. They know what they're doing right after an earthquake. They drill this, they practice this. What they don't know is what the community is going to be doing. But if we can give them the plan, we can say, this is what we're teaching our people. These are the teams that are out there. This is the step-by-step guide they're going to be following. They can anticipate that response and know what to do. Know how to incorporate us into their own plans. And we're going to be critical. If you ask any firefighter in the city of Los Angeles, any chief, any captain, they're going to tell you after an earthquake, they're going to need us. They're going to need CERT members. They're going to need the neighborhood teams. And you're going to need them. You're going to need your neighbors. The third is that we want to have a plan to get those critical incidents from the block level up to the LAFD command teams. If we can radio those critical incidents, it doesn't matter if 911 is down. It doesn't matter if cell phones don't work. Our radio communications that we drill with, that we are practicing with, We know they work because we've tested them, and then we've got a plan on how to communicate, and that is going to get that information up the chain. And the fourth thing is that we want to drill this annually. It does us no good to say, okay, here's the plan, it's in a binder somewhere. If there's a disaster, go ahead and find it. Go ahead and look at it then. We want you to know what the plan is now, and we need to practice this regularly, at least annually. Hopefully you and your battalions, you and your bureaus will practice this more than that, quarterly even, because it becomes muscle memory. It becomes this isn't the first time I've seen this plan. This is something that we've practiced several times. I at least know when I glance over the plan again what I'm going to be doing and where I'm going to be going, who I'm going to be meeting with, what we're going to be doing, and how we're going to communicate. Our website is www.ntp-la.com. That stands for Neighborhood Team Program-Los Angeles.com. You can email us at info@ntp-la.com. And as mentioned, the sign-up form is join.ntp-la.com. We're also on Facebook. If you search for Neighborhood Team Program, you'll find us there. And that's that. All right. So at this point of time, I would like to see if our Central Bureau Chief is on.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. First of all, my name is Christina Kepner, and I am one of 3 Assistant Bureau Commanders for Central Bureau. We are all 3 on different shifts. So I do really want to say thank you to, first of all the participants in CERT, all of the coordinators, as well as everyone on this meeting tonight, because it is so important that you guys are involved in the community with your neighbors if there is any kind of major disaster. Patrick, you were right on with so many things that you said tonight. I just want to reiterate a few of those. It's really not a matter of if, it's a matter of when the next disaster is going to occur. And yes, we are long overdue for an earthquake. You're exactly right that in the initial hours after a major disaster, if we use an earthquake for an example, the fire department will definitely be busy. I wanted to go over a few of the things that we're going to do initially if there were a major earthquake. One of the first things we do is a quick initial survey, which is a drive-through of our districts. So each of our fire stations has a pre-designated route that they're going to drive through so that they can take an initial damage assessment and then triage where our highest priorities are. So those of you that have taken CERT and other classes, triage means to sort. So we're going to sort and prioritize where our biggest life safety hazards are, and that's where we're going to respond to first. So while you may see fire engines or trucks driving through your communities, we're not going to initially stop. And I know that will, be really frustrating for people that need our help, but that's exactly why it's so important that these neighborhood teams are in place so that you can help each other until we can get to you. So yeah, we're going to be looking at hospitals, multi-dwelling occupancies, large residential and commercial occupancies, industrial and public assemblage locations. And wherever the need is most immediate to save the most amount of lives is where we're going to go first. Of course, we're going to be moving other stations and apparatus into the district that's hit the hardest so that we can try to get to everybody that needs our help. But the first few hours, if you are able to help each other as neighbors and as a community, really will save lives. And that's everything from, like Patrick said, basic life support, turning off your neighbor's gas and water, finding generators, the people in your neighborhood that have generators, water, food, basic first aid supplies. All of that is so important, and that's why being prepared now before it happens and being a part of these neighborhood teams is truly, truly so important for you guys. And for us as well. It helps us out tremendously because we want to get to everybody. We just can't hit everybody in those first few hours. So I really just want to say thank you. I really appreciate all of you stepping up for your community. I live in Los Angeles, so this is really close to my heart as well. And it's great to see so many people wanting to volunteer your time to help others. And thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Thank you, Chief. Captain, if you wouldn't mind unmuting and saying a few words.
Sure. Again, Patrick, I just wanted to say thank you. Obviously, a ton of work has gone into not only the presentation tonight, but your work in really trying to drive this thing forward in Central Bureau. So thank you for all of that. I think you provided a really good overview of how this program really is going to be effective. I mean, like you said, you're going to streamline the benefits of the 3 programs that you identified and make it accessible to the community. I think that's really where this thing needed to go, and it's awesome to see it being pushed citywide. So, you know, we really appreciate all the hard work that you guys do. I mean, you guys are so awesome, and all the planned events that we do in South Bureau, whether it's Taste of Soul, the different marches, the emergency incidents, and then all the work that you're doing here. It's just truly incredible. And, you know, Chief Villanueva, as Chin knows, supports everything that you guys do. So if there's anything that we can do from the South Bureau office to help this thing move forward, we're happy to do that. And we're excited to see the new neighborhood councils that are going to be moving forward in 2021 under Chin's direction. So thank you again for tonight.
Thank you, Captain. Chin, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Patrick, I think you summed up everything really, really nicely. I think we have to really drive home the point, though, continuously that we're going to be on our own in most of our neighborhoods. So this type of program, being that we are not reinventing the wheel, I know there's a lot of effort right now in the city to try to come up with some programs. This one by far is probably the most comprehensive, with EMD, with Neighborhood Watch, and with the neighborhood team program right in the middle. So I really recommend that people jump in on this. And one thing Patrick said that really has always resonated in my mind is going back to the early weeks of the COVID-19 shutdown. I got to tell you, I was in and out, in and around South Bureau, and watching people just, you know, literally try to tear themselves apart to get toilet paper, water, things I'm still trying to figure out why there's a rush on all that kind of stuff. But it just showed just how unprepared we are. And what I find disturbing is that even now, we're almost 9 months into this situation, and now we have people now getting back into that mindset. It shows you that we're just still not prepared for this. So let's really move forward on this. And we stand here, Patrick, myself, all of CERT, even the fire department, as you've heard, we're here and ready to support you. So let's get something going. That's really my thought on the whole thing. And for those of you who know me really well, thank God Patrick did this presentation, because you know I can't say anything with it with less than 77 pages.
If you'd like to sign up for Chin's Floor Watch, it's an impressive document that comes out that has a table of contents monthly. But it's an amazing document that Chin puts out every month, that South Bureau gets to be part of.